Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Aaron Trevino here, and we have another wonderful guest. We have Herman Torres from Houston, Texas. How you doing today?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you. Happy Valentine's.
Happy Valentine's Day. That's right. It's a beautiful day. The weather's been interesting here. It was pretty cold last week, and it seems like it's been beautiful the past few days.
Same thing here. I mean, we're out of Houston, as you know, and we had a freeze and then it warmed up and they got cold again. So it's typical Texas weather for sure.
Ain't that the truth? Absolutely. So for those of us who aren't too familiar with you, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. So my name is Herman Torres. I'm the managing director of a private equity firm here out of Houston, Texas. We basically do a little what I would consider, private lending, alternative lending. We do some development ourselves as well. And then we do some property management. So we have basically a three-prong approach to real estate investment.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely sounds like that's more or less of a one-stop shop, right? It kind of seems like you're encompassing a lot of different facets of the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, as I mentioned, we help investors with some funds, for non-owner occupied investments. We do some cash outs on, even land, undeveloped land. It all depends on what we call in the industry, and as you know, is the loan to value, right? But typically, the investors that are looking to do some flips, maybe they already have a product, a property, I mean, and they want to cash out, then we can help them with that as well. And then on the other hand, obviously, we're investors and real estate folks ourselves with what we consider now a vast number of years in experience. So we've done some development, some townhomes. We're now looking to develop a business office condominium project a little south of the Woodlands. And then, some single family residences that we've done, not to mention, flips and all these acquisitions for our own rental portfolio.
Absolutely, Herman. And I'm curious as well. Maybe someone is not too familiar with the Houston area. What makes Houston special or distinct in terms of development or lending? What makes the Houston market unique to Texas?
Well, the Houston city, really, number one, is the fourth largest city in the United States, right? But really, if you read and if you, of course, if you live here, you will be able to identify the fact that it's the most diversified city in the U.S. and some people say in the world, because we have a huge, medical influence. We have the petrochemical industry. We have the ship channel. We have oil and gas, of course. And then real estate kind of stays pretty balanced across the world. And here in Houston, when the crash happened in 2008, where cities like, Arizona, Las Vegas, down there, the whole state of Florida and many other ones, right? When they have that huge upswing, they also have that downswing. So we've been pretty lucky. Now we, of course, are experiencing a market that we've never had before, where we're having all these people moving to Texas, specifically, right, Houston, Austin, and the prices are going just off the roof, really. Just because a lot of the people are coming in, from other states and driving the market pricing up.
Definitely. It's a very, unique time we're living in, kind of, how you said. I mean, I was in high school in 2008, so I wasn't too familiar with what was going on. But it's interesting to hear how 2008 was completely different from what we're experiencing right now in the market. It's almost like we've never seen it before.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we do, of course, is for those investors that are looking to either start in the real estate careers, we can help them out. We can guide them. We can provide some advice. We do some joint ventures in certain occasions. But really, the gist and the majority of our loans are for investors that are already up and running and they need some additional funds, right? They may be tapped out with the banks or maybe some other lenders. And so we come in and we help them out with a pretty flexible product. We don't have these protocols that we have to follow. We are family oriented, we're family owned. And so we can be flexible. So it's a matter of finding the right win-win scenario, right? Obviously, we have to feel like we're protected. We're putting funds out there, but we also want that investor to be successful.
That's right. And that's really the beauty of private lending, right? Is that you kind of have that, maybe that quote unquote box, right? That the bank wants. And a lot of times your private lender, your local private lender, especially someone like yourself, the Houston market, they can really step outside of that box and be flexible in ways that maybe a bank couldn't.
Absolutely. The other thing that we've noticed It's especially here in Texas, out there in Florida as well, Arizona. A lot of the foreign nationals, right, from Mexico are really looking to invest in real estate. They don't feel comfortable with the potential downturn of their economy, their currency. They're worrying about some, devaluation. And so they are bringing some of their funds over here. So we are finding that those folks we can also help because we have a really good foreign national product and some loans that we can assist them, because a lot of those folks, regardless of how their net worth is, right, and they typically are pretty well off folks out there, they can't get qualified here. So we help them. We have the product to assist them and really put them into some real estate. That way they can accomplish their goal of safekeeping their funds.
Right, exactly. And, amongst that as well as, maybe people, don't even have the time as well. Maybe they're busy professionals, they're maybe coming from other markets, other parts of the country, different countries as well. So it's neat how, your product line is really bridging that gap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, we call ourselves here a private equity firm just because obviously we kind of have different products. We work with, funds that we can put out there to work. But at the end of the day, we're private lenders, alternative lending as well. I mean, those are terminology that I like to use. Some other people may call it also hard money, right? Depending on rates and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we are here to assist those investors that want to have a successful real estate career, and they need funds to be able to accomplish that.
Sure, sure, absolutely. I mean, especially in a robust market like Houston as well. Houston's already, like you said, it's already a very large city. People keep moving here, and it always seems like there's a lot of activity, whether it's development or construction or investing.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the nail. Really, we're here to help. Sometimes, depending on the project, we've entered into joint ventures. So that's also a win-win scenario because we can bring in the funds. The investor may be bringing in a deal. They may be bringing in some experience that they may have, or the willingness to work at certain projects and be the eyes out there at the work job site, right? So we've done that as well. We don't go into those easily. We have to make sure that everything is dissected and everybody understands, the T's and the I's and all that good stuff. But it is one way that we can help some people basically get started as well.
Right. No, and that's definitely something to think about as well. Maybe you're a busy professional, or maybe you're a younger professional, you're just starting out. It always seems like maybe the constraints would be time and money. Whereas with a joint venture, the beauty of that is that you can kind of have someone with the experience, the cash, and you put the deal together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course we have the personnel that can dissect the numbers and really maybe sometimes open up some eyes, right? Because a lot of people come in thinking that they're going to make X, and they really the projection really only shows Y as a potential profit margin. And then you have to take some of the contingencies in mind and all these other things that are not taken in consideration by folks that may not be as experienced. So we bring the experience. We've been investing really since the 80s. When I came out of the military, I invested into my first really rental house, and I didn't even know I was considered an investor, but that's really what I was, right? And over the years, we've acquired properties. We do some of the fix and flips, as I told you, but we also fix them and keep them for our rental portfolio.
Sure. No, you touched on something interesting there, Herman. You said right when you came out of the military, you didn't see yourself as an investor, and then it maybe over time you kind of began seeing it that way. It's interesting how everyone in the world is in the real estate business.
Well, if you look at, most of the wealthy people, regardless of whether they got money from mom and dad or whether they're even athletes, right? That make all this money coming out of college, become professionals. I mean, they eventually end up investing in real estate. They have other investment avenues as well that we may not be able to. But at the end of the day, they also have real estate properties within the portfolio, investment properties, whether it's commercial, multifamily, and so on.
Sure, absolutely. And it's such a broad industry as well, because I guess at least for me growing up, when someone said real estate, I would just think buying or selling a home, right? But there's so many different different parts to it.
Yeah, right now with Airbnb and the social media and the internet the way it is, I mean, it's become a global market. Guys that are much younger than I am really can leverage things that we never had in the past, even from just gathering information about comps and, looking at videos through Google and you can look at a property almost immediately by just going on Google Earth and looking at different views and see if it's even worth you going out there, right? So you all use a lot more tools than we ever did. And so it's very interesting what's become of the real estate market and really the world as a whole.
Definitely. And it's interesting as well. It kind of seems like historically real estate has been one of those industries that's been the most antiquated in terms of technology. And at least now, and at least in the past 8 to 10 years, it really seems like there's been a hard push for incorporating technology with real estate. So I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And it's catching up with technology, and technology is really driving some volume, just especially for those folks that have learned how to leverage that. I mean, the things that we're doing right now, the podcast is something that, I've never thought about. And of course, meeting you and having you talk about what you're doing and how these things can be broadcasted across an entire nation and maybe who knows the world, right? I mean, it's really amazing to me.
Definitely across the nation or, in different nations as well. Kind of how you mentioned there's that connection with, Mexico and of course, maybe other countries like, Colombia or Argentina, right? But absolutely, Herman, I know you'd mentioned earlier about that deal that you had near the Woodlands, maybe for someone who's interested in investing or just interested more specifically at what types of projects you do. Could you explain a bit about that project?
Yeah, it's a 6.5 acre plat of land up there in Spring. Again, about 4 miles away from the Woodlands, 2.5 miles away from the new, Exxon plant. And we're doing a development of business condominiums. You see them really in a lot of different places where attorneys, doctors, and doctors can be dentists, chiropractors, brokers, insurance agents. They either rent them or even buy them, right? So a lot of us, like with our homes, we don't want to rent for the rest of our lives. So as a business owner, maybe you want to own your business. And so those business condominiums are the way to go. A lot of people don't want to be driving, to the Galleria downtown, whether it's downtown Houston or San Antonio or Dallas or whatever, right? They want to be closer to home, but they can't work out of the house because they have clientele that they need to tend to, right? I mean, they need to have clients come to the office. They have to have meetings. So even though they can work out maybe a morning or an afternoon out of the mediums are what we're doing right now. And it's 74,000 square feet. There is some potential for investments, in case some folks that want to join as an equity partner. That's something that we can certainly talk about that.
Okay, no, it's interesting, Herman, that the way you phrased that was more of people, of course, are working from home, but at the same time, some professions still need to be client facing. So it's neat how this deal, you're kind of bridging that gap between those two things.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of lost you there at the end, but I think that what you were saying in regards to the client facing is something certainly that, those of us that have an office, I mean, we definitely have to do, right? We have to meet clients. And then also, it develops credibility. If you don't have an office and you're trying to do everything out of the house, whether you're an attorney, a doctor, right? My goodness, how can you go and visit a dental office if you're going to do this out of their home? You probably question. So I mean, these are the type of properties that a lot of folks are getting into because they're fairly inexpensive, and then at the end of the day they quit paying rent, and then at some point in time in the future they own their own office, so they have equity being built into their business.
That makes a lot of sense. It's interesting how kind of work from home has revolutionized a lot of things, but at the same time, you still need the office space. And I'm excited to see you take that deal to fruition. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, man, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We're excited about it, and we've been looking forward to breaking ground. Obviously, with the pandemic in 2020 being a wasted year, it just created a huge delay that really nobody expected it. But here we are going at it, right? And so that's what the name of the game is staying in the game, taking a swing at the bat. We just finished watching the Super Bowl. So it's getting in there and tossing that ball and hopefully scoring a touchdown.
That's right. Tossing the ball and scoring a touchdown. I love that part. Absolutely, Herman. Well, is there anything that you haven't said thus far that you'd really just like to let people know?
No, no, not really. I really appreciate you obviously taking the time and allowing me to get into, this type of podcast and social media. We are out of Houston in the energy corridor between Dairy, Ashford, and Eldridge on Memorial Drive. Look forward to hearing from people that may be interested in our loan services, or maybe if they want some more information on some of the projects that we do, where we can basically give them a nice return on their money. Right? If you have money in the bank sitting around doing nothing, you're really losing money. With inflation, 0.2%. Inflation is at 3-4%, so you're losing money from the get-go, and then you pay taxes on that 2.2%. You got money, and you're letting it basically waste away. So whether you do it with us or anybody else, you need to find a way to really make that money work.
That's right. I think that's the motto of this podcast today. Really just making that money work. You made a great point about inflation and leveraging your money, and I know that your product line puts people in a good position to do that.
Yeah, and we believe that, and we're pleased with our success. We've been in the business 12 years and kind of growing year over year. So that's the name of the game as well, is being profitable and making sure that we're helping people out, and at the same time we try to give as much as possible as well, because we want to be considered a good steward of our world, and obviously manage the funds as well, right? So thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yes, sir, Herman. Thank you so much. It's been great learning a bit more about you and the products you offer. We know that you're in the energy corridor area, and we'll definitely make sure to put links to your business in the video description. And thank you so much. I've greatly enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, I look forward to many more. I really appreciate this. We'll have some interesting topics in the future, right? Some suggestions and some ideas that people maybe can benefit from.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Looking forward to that.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate you. Have a good one.
Thanks.